welcome everyone to this Vodcast. It's an important one, and I know a lot of you reached out to be able to understand, what the content would be, what would we be talking about, what can you bring into the conversations, and I'm hoping that those who reached out have been able to make it convenient to be here today. Sujaya Banerjee, and I'm going to be your presenter through the Vodcast today. So welcome everyone one more time. I really appreciate you taking the time to be able to join us in. This is going to be a very, very important conversation, and I'm sure that's the reason why you found the time to be able to join us in. We've got some really interesting speakers who do work in this space, so I'm hoping that we have experts who are going to bring us some very valuable insights and experiences on this theme, which in the best form is very vaguely understood. At most times not appreciated unless people have experienced severe challenges around mental health themselves. And the fact that it's a hygiene to be maintained at all times, notwithstanding whether you have a crisis situation, is what a lot of this conversation is going to be about. So understanding the importance of mental health and well-being and manifesting it in the workplace is the context of the conversation here today. And we've put it under the umbrella of positive management because I often have very senior leaders within organizations ask me in privacy what this shindig of mental health is really all about. And that why are we making much ado about nothing? Isn't this got to do with individuals and their own personal lives? We have some courses and we've created some modules, and there is an employee assistance program, or there are some meditation classes that the organization is offering. I mean, can't they just make do with that? Why are they pulling in managers and the leaders into this conversation? I mean, don't people have a personal life that they're leading? There could be multiple variables that are impacting their mental health. Why would the leader or the immediate manager be responsible in a way, or how is the immediate manager responsible in any significant way? And why should we be talking about this in the workplace? I'm hoping a lot of these kind of questions, which come from an honest space of curiosity, and often because we've not made connections to be able to understand why are we talking about mental health and well-being in the workplace. Now, before I share my two bit of insights around this, there's no doubts about the fact that these have been very, very disruptive times, not just the environment, not just the business environment, but even personally for individuals. We've all just begun coming out of an upheavals of all upheavals in terms of, international global health crisis. One that has been an equalizer in so many ways, because literally no one had ever experienced anything like that before. These are also times of geopolitical strife. These are times where organizations are in a state of flux. There are new people, new structures, new expectations, scaling up, and a whole lot of variables which can make life very, very stressful and difficult. There are opportunities, and these are times of where we want to call out opportunities rather than challenges, but the opportunities also bring with them a fair share of their stress to be able to manage those opportunities, or leverage those opportunities, or leverage your potential to make the most of those opportunities. So all in all, these are times of personal strife, a lot of spaces of personal grief, which you can't bring to the workplace. And more often than not, especially when you get evaluated through a very prehistoric lens, which is, are you fit for work? Which is what is a paradigm which exists in its own form in most people's minds. And then it is a whole journey of wanting to prove that you are indeed fit for employment and fit for work. And so the stigma associated with experiencing poor mental health days, perhaps, or poor mental health times, perhaps, through the day, are typically basically either ignored, not acknowledged, and certainly in most cases not brought to the attention of experts who can treat it. So this is an extremely, extremely important conversation. I think all organizations that are talking about building high performance cultures must place this theme right at the center of being able to manifest all the millions of opportunities that they see around them. So you do have human resources and you do have the opportunities, and there is a thread right, which lies between the human beings and the opportunities, which is their own mental well-being and their own wellness to be able to actually harness these opportunities for business organizations. And so I'm hoping through the course of the conversations here today, we're able to understand this connection and we're able to appreciate this connection in a meaningful manner so that we're able to create organizations of compassion. Now, compassion again is treated as a real weak word. Most people believe compassion is some form of empathy or sympathy. And I'm here to tell you that compassion is about being fair unto one another. And compassion can famously be combined with accountability in a workplace to actually create and manifest performance. And so I want to start by being able to talk about negative emotions and whether we understand these negative emotions through the day. And I have some fabulous people who I'm going to introduce you to in a bit, who will help us make meaning of some of these questions that I'm going to raise, through the slides I have my deck up, and I'm going to try and share some of these insights with you. So we're talking, for those coming in late, we're talking about positive management and how you can manifest mental health and well-being in the workplace as part of being able to manage people like you must in the 21st century with a huge bent, with a huge orientation and a huge penchant for manifesting management in a positive manner. So to be able to present this with me here today, I have a really outstanding set of people, and I'm delighted. This is perhaps the first time that we have very significant experts from Gen Z who are going to talk to us about the very outstanding work that they do in this space. So we've got, I'm delighted to introduce you to Ira Khan, and Ira is the founder of Agatsu Foundation, and we'll talk to her and about Agatsu in just a bit. Kanika Agarwal, who's founder of MindPeers, and she's also doing some really outstanding work to be able to help organizations manifest the potential that I spoke about before. Anuradha Mishra, who's the senior director of Marsh McLennan, handles a really, really massive workforce and very significantly will bring in her experiences from the workplace around being able to manifest mental health and well-being. So I'm going to start with my first slide, and I wanted to share this with everyone that to begin with, for starters, the space is difficult because only 36% of us are able to accurately identify our emotions as they happen. So that's like 1/3 of us actually are in touch with what we're feeling through the day. And therefore, there is a fogginess. So not understanding what we're feeling creates a kind of a fogginess to be able to actually even begin to start dealing with it. And so in short, what I'm trying to say is that, when we experience negative emotions, a lot of us are not able to label it. We don't know what we are feeling, but we're not feeling very good. And as this grows through the day, because it's unresolved, it's likely to grow into even more negative emotions that can take away very significantly from our energy to be able to deal with the various challenges at work, the challenges in our lives, and to be able to gather ourselves again to be able to go through another round of what we might experience through the day. So 36% of us are able to accurately identify what we're feeling, which is a very significant 2/3 of us don't actually understand what we are feeling, but we do know we are not feeling very good. So we average about 400 emotional experiences every day. So through the course of everything that's happening from the time we wake up in the morning, there are about 400 emotional experiences that you're having. And now do the math, 36% of people are likely to, 1/3 of us are likely to be able to make some meaning out of these emotions. So that's the extent to which you actually need to manage emotions through the day. That's the extent to which you're experiencing emotions through the day. And so logically, how can this not be very significantly in the way of how productive you can be and how contributing you can indeed be within the workplace? 9 out of 10 organizations seem to talk about well-being and wellness. They may have some form of an offering around this. Sometimes it's leave, sometimes it's support in the form of, employee assistance help, some form of counseling and therapy support that they might have available. But research shows strong correlationships between poor mental health and well-being, and basically attrition that you might be experiencing in the workplace, absenteeism that you might be experiencing in the workplace, lower engagement for contribution, and decreased productivity. Now, I'm confident everyone who's on the call here today has experienced this around them, and especially if you're a manager of people, oftentimes you're left flummoxed on the poor mental on the attrition or the absenteeism or the low engagement, which is often an outcome of poor mental health, but we're not able to make that connection clearly. It's not uncommon for people to say, I don't know why people are leaving. I really don't get it. I mean, we have offered them a market salary. I don't think there is anything that is so toxic around here. We treat them well. They get their salaries on time and the rest of that. And yet I have people telling me I'm not enjoying it. I want to be able to move on. And so all these that you're seeing as outcomes, which are attrition, absenteeism, lower engagement, and lower productivity, can often be mental health situations which are not being addressed in a timely manner. Employees experiencing mental health and well-being challenges are 4x more likely to leave the organization. And so here is your reason for why it is that we must build the capability of being able to identify and manage emotions in the workplace, because oftentimes you're not feeling very good. And I'm not saying that there won't be triggers that are being caused in the organization, but your ability to manage emotions around that is what will actually finally define whether you're fit to be able to actually continue contributing in a productive manner. One leader that I was referring to, who asked me, how can I make a difference? What can I do if someone's experiencing poor mental health or negative emotions at work? I don't get how I can influence this or how I can make it better. Maybe they should see a therapist. Maybe there's something happening in their personal lives and they don't want to share that with me. How can I impact this? This is not an uncommon question. There are lots of managers who don't know how they could be impacting the mental health of those who work around them. And so well-being is a combination of so many emotions. It's about your self-regard, your self-confidence. It's about your need to want to continuously learn. It's about the quality of the interpersonal relationships you have in your life. So well-being is a combination of so many things. Actually, a lot of those dimensions can get influenced by the immediate manager and by people who work around us. But the reason why I have this slide up is because a large part of the mental health challenges that are related to, how you get led and how you get managed are emanating from how people feel about how they get led and how they get managed. And so creating these environments or cultures of respect are significantly important, because they can often, sort of trigger negative emotions which are difficult for people to manage, especially when they're not able to identify what exactly that they are feeling. And so the immediate manager or the people manager is a very significant individual who can create a very significant influence on the individual's ability to remain productive and to be able to contribute. I mean, what you're seeing on the chart here is feeling respected is the number one thing anyone wants from a workplace, and everything else comes after that. And so creating this environment where you're sure you feel safe, that you will not be treated badly, or you will not be treated in a suboptimal way, or that you will not be treated in an uncaring manner, is a very significant requirement, increasingly in these very sort of tumultuous times that we exist in. So, with that as a preamble, I have people who do work on this every single day of their lives, and a lot of them doing significant work with corporates, with organizations. One of my reasons for inviting them to this conversation is because I often get told or asked by clients, do you know of anybody who is professionally qualified to do this? So it's not offline modules. I'm sorry, it's not online modules. It's not just some meditation music that we have. It's not just something that we do one-off inside the organization, but people who can offer more lasting, sort of continuing, impactful solutions around mental health and build literacy around this very important area, which has especially become it's multiplied, especially in the current very unprecedented, times of upheavals. And so I'm going to, at this point, invite the speakers in, and I'm really excited. I have Ira Khan here with me from Agatsu Foundation, and Kanika Agarwal, and I'm sure Anuradha Mishra is going to join us shortly. She had a bit of an exigency, and so she's going to join us in the next couple of minutes. Invite Ira Khan first. Ira, if you can tell us about Agatsu and I did say my first thread that I wanted to talk about was if you can share a bit around. So I think I'll get you to introduce yourself and then maybe Kanika, and then we'll try and talk about, enabling our viewers today to be able to partake in some literacy around both mental health and well-being. So if you can talk a bit about mental health and well-being on the back of your introduction will be just so great. So I'll hand this over to you, Ira. So if you can introduce Agatsu to the audience.
Sure. Thank you for having me here. My name is Ira, and I'm the founder of Agatsu Foundation. It's a mental well-being organization. As you mentioned, literacy, I hesitate to say the word mental health and mental well-being because I have no idea what you're thinking when I say that word. So basically, all humans experience the world through their mind. Whatever it is that you do, you are experiencing it through your mind. And so just the state of your mind is your mental well-being. Good, bad, up, down, whatever it is, right? So the relationships you have with your parents, with your friends, who you want to get married to, what job you want, what success means to you, all of those things are part of your mental well-being, how you respond to failure, everything. And so at Agatsu, we want to look at it from a preventative point of view. So before things get bad or even not fun, what are the things that we can learn to do to thrive, to enjoy life, whatever that means for you. And what really got to me, so I started Agatsu because I had clinical depression, and through my journey, what I realized is that science and psychology has found things that can teach us better. Not to blame anybody, we didn't know better before, but now we do know better. And so if we can start earlier on to take care of these things and be mindful of them and learn them for our benefit, then we should, because we live in a happier, more fulfilling world. So that's the idea of Agatsu. We have a community center and a therapy.
Lovely, super. So we loop back to you. I'll take this over to Kanika. Kanika, do you want to introduce MindPeers and maybe also talk a bit about, help the audience with some literacy around mental health and well-being?
Sure. So, hey everyone, I'm Kanika. I run MindPeers. Like Ira shared I think our own experiences lead us to, do something about such things. So I was diagnosed with clinical anxiety 8 years ago. And it happened because at that particular back in that time, people labeled it as first world problem because I went through it. I recognized it while I was running my first company, and I did not know how to say no. And I didn't know that something like a mindset or your mind can actually come in between your ambitions as well, right? But the whole problem I feel has been of unawareness, just like how it has taken us time to understand how to take care of our bodies. We need to accept that our mind needs support as well on an everyday basis, whether it it is going through something or whether it is not, right? So both preventive and treatment. So at MindPeers, we particularly work with organizations, with workplaces. And the idea is to both preventively and from a treatment perspective, help people to take care of their minds so that they can function in their best way possible, whether it is in your personal life or your profession. I mean, the ways to do it is a lot. And I think we'll cover that off while we talk.
Right. Thank you. So I think, I want to shift this conversation over to real examples and real stories because that's perhaps the most compelling way to be able to learn about mental health and well-being. So I'm interested to know, and I think any of you can go first. I'm interested to know, what stories can you share with the audience, especially around, maybe successful professionals who've reached out because they believe they're suboptimal at work because of what they're struggling with, but they're unable to tell what exactly it is that is going on, because of which they don't feel as attracted to come to work or they don't enjoy the experience of work. or they know that the organization is relying on them for so many things, but they can't actually come in and don't feel confident to be able to deliver anymore, are not enjoying the experience anymore, or are not enjoying certain life transitions. For example, if they're heading towards their 50s, where there are bodily changes, there are other kind of things that they're dealing with. Tell me a bit about successful people and the experiences you have had. And I'm trying to bust a myth here that when you have mental health issues, it's only some people who are maybe young and at mid levels and are indulging themselves and are basically are conscious about mental health challenges being an impediment to their performance. And I know that there is a lot of grays around that space, but I want to be able to bring in senior successful people who are struggling with mental health issues, and how perhaps you or your organization or somebody else that you brought in actually help them work through their challenges, starting from is addressing the stigmas of coming out to be able to talk about their mental health issues. Would love to know stories of these kinds. It will also be successful people at mid levels and so on. I'm happy to be able to talk about it, but I'm trying to open it up to bringing in stories of people who are significantly successful, to be able to talk about how they combat the stigma associated with mental health challenges. Because typically, I mean, the prowess you bring in at work is your intellectual capability, isn't it? So when you do say you have emotional challenges, it's admitting, first of all, to a weakness which might be significantly in the way of performance. And you may not be seen as fit for the job anymore, which is part of the reason why you don't want to come out with what your challenge might be. So I'd love to know if you've experienced these kind of situations and any other stories which you find intriguing, which you think you could actually share with the audience here today, because I think it starts from the admittance that I have a challenge, and I think I want to be able to work on it.
Agatsu personally hasn't worked with organizations or any specific, but there's actually this organization called Let's Walk Together that is specifically for people with mental health challenges to have gainful employment. And one of the people who is part of that initiative is Asha Pillai. She's come out about her story with mental health, and she was the CFO of Shell, and she shared her story, and she has bipolar disorder, and there is a whole conversation about, if I have a mental health disorder, can I still work? Can I still go up the ladder? And so I don't know any personally. I don't know any very high up professionals in a personal capacity, but I do know that there's a conversation about this, and it's a growing conversation about what is reasonable accommodation and how can you support the people in your company who are going through mental health issues in a way that is beneficial to you as well as nurturing and helpful for them. And I think I mean, one thing you have to admit is whether or not you cater to it. If you don't talk about it openly, there will still be lots of people in your organization who struggle with mental health issues. And if they can't come forward about it because they don't feel comfortable or they feel stigmatized, then you are not going to be able to help each other still exist in your company. So you just won't know about it. And then whatever aid you could potentially provide to them for the overall benefit of your cause, your company, you're not going to be able to do that. Because it's not like people are going to stop applying to jobs. It's not like people are going to stop trying to work. Everyone wants to make money. So all of these people are still going to try and apply, try and, fight it through. And it's beneficial to both sides if you acknowledge it and work. And it's doable in the sense that there are organizations like Mariwala Health Initiative that are, trying to find a balance between how can you be held accountable for your work and still have reasonable accommodation from your leadership in your company.
Good point. Kanika, you want to add to that?
Yeah, sure. So since you asked about personal stories and what kind of cases, one comes across when we are looking at workplaces, I think I'll distribute it into very quick 4 buckets, very
Mm.
relatable things. And let's look at the first bucket uh, where we have a lot of people whose journey in the company starts from something like, am I doing enough? Am
Mm.
I good enough or not? Right? A lot of us also know it as an imposter syndrome,
Mm.
which is now superbly common
Mm.
in Gen Zs and millennials. The reason is that social media, a lot of other things where there is peer comparison,
Yeah.
where we are saying that, can I get better? Am
Yeah.
I doing enough in my work? How do I get promoted quickly? Because, our dopamine hits, our distractions have become so quick that we want results very fast. And when unattended to, a lot of time, the simple statement of self-esteem, of confidence issues is leading to a lot of anxiety. It is leading to a lot of depression. In a lot of cases, it also leads to personality disorders, right? So that's one classic umbrella where a lot of stories fall in. And that's when workplaces need to become inclusive
Mm.
to understand. And I'll come to that part that, how or what workplaces are doing. We can touch upon that later, but that's the first bucket overall,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
The second thing that I want to talk about, because you said to shed some light on senior
Mm.
aspects as well.
Mm.
There are so many times and it's still a very hidden thing because moms,
Mm.
our female inclusivity part of it, we are still getting there. But
Mm.
I don't know how many of you over here can actually relate to a mom's guilt,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
Always that feeling of being guilty and of having regrets that, am I doing enough for my child and am I doing enough at the workplace or not? Or even feeling that just because I'm a working mom today,
Mm.
I am not able to give my full attention at home.
Mm.
And this is something that our female workforce, like the female employees, are fighting day in and out. And that's where, when things, again, if unattended to, if these thoughts are not talked about openly, if they are not accepted, then what happens is that they start to lead to a lot of other things. So mom's guilt is something that, we see a lot.
Mm.
And then the third bucket where we usually categorize is people, and this is again, it's very new, not new because it has not been happening in the past.
Mm.
It's new because we are becoming aware of it.
Mm.
1 in 3 women in our country go through PCOS,
Mm.
right? Now that PCOS is aggravated because of stress and anxiety and vice versa,
Mm.
right? The idea here is that we have so many cases today where your mental health concerns are rising from your physical health concerns.
Mm.
Intestinal bowel syndrome, IBS, PCOS, like I mentioned, autoimmune disorders,
Mm.
diabetes, all
Mm.
of these are leading to some or the other mental health concern and vice versa.
Mm.
So I've sort of bucketed it into, 3 very common things that
Mm.
we are seeing day in and out, which is impacting a lot of employees at the workplace, at the workplace. Just a few examples because we honestly get cases
Yeah.
every day, a lot of
Yeah.
them, right? Yeah, so I think that's where I could give some relatable aspects.
Right. Great stuff. I think good inputs there. I'm going to loop back in to be able to get more on what you're seeing workplaces asking you for. But I'm really excited that Anuradha Mishra is here. And thank you, Anuradha, for making the time and coming
Thank
in.
you.
But Anuradha is a very, very accomplished professional doing some very outstanding work, for JLT earlier, now for Marsh McLennan. Anuradha, I'm going to bring you in with your very rich experience in the space. We started by talking about the stigma associated with mental health, the dilemma of what can I do as a manager? This might just be a personal challenge which an individual needs to sort of navigate on their own. So, what do I have to do with the mental health of individuals and clearly not seeing the connection? We spoke a bit about creating respectful workplaces and that immediate managers and people managers play a very significant role in being able to influence the quality of emotions people experience every day. And so I'm going to pause there to be able to ask you, you're coming at the opportune time to be able to perhaps share your experiences. You lead and manage a very large workforce at Marsh McLennan in India. What are your own experiences? And they don't have to be only from work, they could also be experiences you know of. And I'd be interested to be able to kind of create more literacy, more awareness, more opportunity, especially for our viewers and those who will view the recorded version of this conversation here today. So over to you, Anuradha.
Thank you, Sujaya. And since I come from an organization which has Mercer under its, brand name, Mercer does a lot of work around wellness, and they've recently done some work, and there's some good research available in terms of how wellness and mental health is being looked at. Very clearly, they say the wellness and mental health are 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 subsets of each other, and while wellness is a very large aspect, if you look at mental health itself,
Hmm.
they say that 1 in 3 people in the working age are feeling burnt out and burnout related exhaustion. Now,
Hmm.
that's a huge group of people that we're
Yeah.
talking about, right?
Yeah.
And they're saying that these instances of anxiety is definitely worse with women than with men.
Yeah.
23% of women are openly talking about feeling anxiety and trying to manage anxiety, while only 18% men are talking about it. um, 1 in 10 people have officially or unofficially reported that because of anxiety and mental health related issues, they are losing they're losing working hours, right? Which means that there is a direct impact of our mental wellness on the productivity and the way organizations function,
Hmm.
right? How well people are engaged, how well, what is really happening. So there's a lot of data which we have around mental health, Suja,
Hmm.
today. But I think from my personal experience, I don't think organizations, leaders, or people in organizations today are adept to have those conversations. The first thing that I hear most managers talk about is that, do I have that license to talk of mental health? Right?
Hmm.
Do I have the license to recognize a problem as a mental health related issue?
Hmm. Hmm.
Right? That's the first thing. The second thing is most of them are not equipped to talk about these things,
Hmm.
let alone recognize a mental health issue. They're not even equipped to know, how to start a conversation like this. The biggest demand that organizations today have is, can I train people on how to have empathetic conversation?
Hmm.
That's the basic, right?
Hmm.
Empathetic conversation is basic when you're talking relationships and
Yeah.
conversations, right? So when it comes to mental health or general well-being of colleagues, we really have to start at the basics right now.
Hmm.
We're not really at a place where we can say that we're creating organizations which are built around wellness, or which are built around total wellness of employees. And to add to all of this, now we've got a huge group of Gen Zs and millennials entering the organization, who don't enter organization like the Gen X's were, to be loyal to the organization or to earn a living as such. They're looking for 100% 360-degree living, right? They're looking for better experiences in life. And when you come to better experiences, you need to have organizations which are able to provide those experiences, and they're
Hmm.
able to provide that safety, that environment, that thriving workplace where people are
Hmm.
really able to find who they are, right?
Hmm.
Coming from colleges, this is an exploratory ground for people. They
Hmm.
want to experience things to the fullest.
Yeah.
But if that experience comes with a lot of stress, with a lot of baggage, with a lot of expectations of things
Hmm.
that I need to do in an organization, it doesn't create a great experience then,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? And that's where that, it leads to mental health issues and other things. And the good thing, I think, the positive thing that we're seeing in organizations is that that vocabulary of mental wellness is now building up, which is
Yeah.
also really important.
Yeah. Yeah.
In our generation, I don't think we were talking mental wellness or depression or anxiety, or these words weren't so important.
Yeah.
But
But we were feeling these negative emotions. We
we
didn't
were
talk about
all
it. We didn't have the labels. We
exactly,
didn't have the
we
labels.
didn't have the labels, and we didn't have the education that these could also be issues. I'll
Yeah.
give you a very great example that I experienced just a few days back. I
Hmm.
was speaking to a very senior person in the
Hmm.
organization, um, who's way, in his midlife,
Mm.
maybe. And the fact that he has a young child who has who is possibly somewhere in the spectrum, the fact that he's going and having conversations with people who are practicing advisors in the mental health
Specialist.
area, specialists, they have been talking about characteristics, and he's realizing that possibly he's been on the spectrum. Now
Mm.
imagine a 50-year-old person
Mm.
recognizing at the age
Mm.
of 50 that there was a mental health issue that I've dealt with all through my life, and I didn't know
Mm.
what was really going on.
Mm. Yeah.
That's the lack of vocabulary and
Yeah.
understanding that we have.
Yeah,
That
and I dare say stigma, because there's just been such a huge pressure to be normal like everyone else. You know what I mean? And it's like, and that as if nothing impacts me. You know what I mean? I'm like this, person who can be boxed down and I'll spring back again and I'm just fine and I'm just okay and I keep going. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
such a huge. We did. I don't think we even described it as resilience. I think it was just the courage to show up to work every day, no matter what.
and
And
that was the right thing to do.
yeah,
Nobody said that it wasn't right to do that,
yeah, yeah,
right? and
yeah,
and most of our parents would have brushed everything under the carpet, saying it's just a momentary thing, it'll all get over,
yeah,
right? Or you would
yeah,
have to deal with the fact that I'm not like other children.
yeah,
Not the case today, and that's the beauty of our of this generation that we living in, and the experiences, I think every day is changing for all of us.
yeah.
And yeah, that to just sum it all, I think we're not there when it comes to organizational resilience around my mental wellness. There's a lot of work that is required to be done.
Mm, mm. Yes. And I think that, I liked what you said very much, because you're talking about, at least this is out there in the conversation, that it's acceptable to talk about it. There are
Yeah,
labels which you can use. There's better understanding. I'm hoping more empathy around what somebody else may be experiencing, even if you have not experienced that before. And then an empathy of another kind, which is, which emanates when you believe that you've experienced all of this but you didn't know what it was called, and worst of all, that you didn't ask for help, and
yeah,
that your life could have been so different if you'd actually gone out there and asked for the help, because the help could have been available if we understood the entire space better. So completely with you on at least the progress in terms of being able to understand it. I'm still concerned with the stigma, and I'm still concerned with the fit for work stamp. And I think that the stigma prevents you from being able to bring your authentic self to work in a way, by being able to say that I am a work in progress. You know what I mean? Like I'm still working at it. Yeah, not yet there. You know what I mean? But working on it. And I'm not going to try and compromise on what I need to do in the interim, but you should know that I experience these things. You know what I mean? And that I am working on what it is. I recognize it and I'm working on it. And I think that itself is a huge step forward. I'm afraid we're not even there in terms of being in many places, we're not even there where you can openly admit to being work in progress, where you can admit that your lack of 100% mental health is, uh, or not, your lack of overall well-being, because well-being being the larger umbrella, is
mm.
not inhibiting my ability to be able to contribute. But if I worked on it, I could do even better.
I think, organizations is really not going deep down into these things and talking. Today also, when I speak to Marsa and we ask them questions like, why do organizations want us to work on well-being as a theme or mental wellness as a theme? There are three most important reasons why organization ask for this kind of work.
Hmm.
One is because they're seeing productivity issues happening around them, and they want to really make a difference there. The second is because competitors are doing something about it.
Hmm. Hmm.
And the third is because leadership thinks that it's an imperative and we need to be there,
Hmm.
right? It's not about, it's still not come down to the conversation of saying it's the employee who is important, it's
Yeah.
the colleague who's important.
Yeah.
The day we're able to come to that conversation to say we want 100% or 110% of the employees' personality coming into the organization, I think that's when we will have really reached where we want to be.
Right. So I want the viewers to have a sense on what are organizations then doing about this. And I'm going to add with what my own experiences have been, but I'd like to start perhaps with Kanika on what are you seeing organizations ask for, and I'll tell you where I'm coming from with this question, is that even where there is recognition, because it's such a spectrum and organizations are at different stages of this, there is a tendency to say that we have an employee assistance program, which I'm sure you're aware of, and that, or in some cases, we have 2 or 3 identified qualified therapists who we can refer people to if they're going through trauma or grief, or need some support because they're handling something difficult. So there might be trained people who are available who can be reached out to at the organization's cost, so to say. And then there's this whole host of some form of learning modules which are there. And then there's some meditation music. And sometimes there's also a meditation session for people to be able to cope. And I think at most times the idea is that we create workplaces which have tranquility pools and maybe have some fountains. And so they create a workplace where you can kind of unwind and feel better, or maybe change or shift your mood. Yeah, so I think these are some of the things that I see happening. They seem very sort of check in the box-ish, still not acknowledging negative emotions that you might experience. And I'm referring back to the slides I was using at the start, which can actually help people understand what they're feeling so that they're able to actually address what they're feeling and then ask for that help that they really need to get. Because I really believe, other than the stigma, there's like a cloudy feeling most people experience because they don't quite know what they're experiencing, but it's not good. So the idea being to be able to get them that help. And the third and the most important one being that you create sensitization around the triggers we might be creating in the business of transacting work with employees. And is there a scope there of being able to create environments that are sensitized to the impact it may be having, and that different strokes for different folks, especially with certain people who we do see as fragile, to be able to manage and handle them with care to bring them to productivity. So I'm wondering whether that third part, you're seeing that happen at all, or are we still at that, let's have a tranquility pool and I don't think most organizations have the space for a tranquility pool, and many of them don't want offices anymore. But that apart, in large numbers, we've given marching orders to people to be able to come back to the workplace to manage productivity. And I do see good reasons for organizations who have had to do that. But what do you see actually manifest, and what are you seeing them ask for?
Yeah, so it's a chicken and an egg problem still, right? And I agree to a lot what Anuradha is saying here, or said before, that because we work in and out with about currently we're working with some 82 organizations, out of which about I think a healthy 60% are in India, and then 40% is outside. Now, I'm going to give you to the third point that you asked about sensitization and leaders accepting it and truly doing it for the employee, right? Instead of like a checkbox. So I'm going to give you an example of a very mini project that we started for HubSpot. They are very well known when it comes to when it comes to culture. And we did this outside India, in Southeast Asia for them. And we didn't know that it would, it would get this sort of traction that it would. But what we ended up doing was that, and this was, mental wellness was still at a very nascent stage. So I'm talking literally 4 years back. And they genuinely started seeing intergenerational problems in the workplace, which is very much there, right? Like the leaders being from your Gen X, and then the demographics are now majority changing to your youngsters. And like Anuradha said, the Maslow's hierarchy says that the youngsters need more of compelling experiences. They don't need to take care of, they're not worried about the physiological needs anymore. Anyway, so what we did there was we created a very small program on Fridays. Okay, and this was called a reflective hour, where by compulsion the team leaders were supposed to be vulnerable, right? They were just supposed to answer and discuss that, hey, these are probably the 5 to 6 struggles that I have gone through in the week. And it was totally up to them whether the struggles were coming from their personal lives or from their professional space. or from
Okay.
anywhere else, right? It could just be saying that, I'm feeling so fatigued today, or I have felt so fatigued over the week that I don't know it is, what it is to do with, and then
Hmm.
extrapolating on that.
Hmm.
And what we realized was that these sessions became like a magic for
Hmm.
the employee workforce because it created a space for the other people to open up,
Hmm.
right? And that's what also that's a part of being empathetic, right? Today,
Yeah.
if I tell you that I'm going through something, a lot of people probably would be able to relate to it, and
Yeah.
they will find the space to share.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
point I'm trying to drive here,
Self-disclosure always leads to self-disclosure. So,
exactly.
yeah.
But when it's coming from your
Yeah.
leaders,
Yeah.
it's putting themselves on vulnerability, and then of course when your leaders are doing it, it creates a very different culture in
Yeah.
that sense.
Yeah.
So what I just want to say is that I know that a lot of companies are taking up EAPs. We do provide that as well. But in a lot of sense, we feel that it cannot be just a defined framework. It can't be just something, hey, I'm going to provide you XYZ therapist and all of that.
Yeah.
If we really want to seriously take it up, and it completely depends on the company whether it needs to be a bottom to top or a top to bottom approach. But the first step to it is conversations. I
Hmm.
feel open conversations, right?
Hmm.
And the second thing that I just want to say again from my learning, we've seen some sort of trends, and the
Hmm.
trends that we're seeing is workplaces and organizations where your age demographic is majority governed by people below the age of 38. There, the adoption of your therapeutic services, for example, is much more. They're fearlessly saying that I'm just going to accept that I'm going through something, and if I need help, I'm going to ask for that help.
Hmm.
Whereas when we look at legacy organizations, there I would say that I don't think it is happening in the most practical and the realistic way we would want to, because the later generations are still getting around the fact that, oh, I can use it without being judged.
Yeah.
Will that go to my HR? Will it be discussed? Will it affect my performance appraisal and things like that?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So when we work today with digital agencies in India, we see that generally the uptake is so high, they really need it. Everyone is talking about it, from the founders to the leaders, etc. And then when you look at your established legacy brands, we still need to break through that stigma to really make it very real and very practical.
Yeah. So, while I mean that divide is completely understandable, that's the point I was actually making earlier. But I'm wondering, are you seeing that change? Are you seeing that shift? Is the uptake improving for the legacy organizations, or where you have
Absolutely.
more of the gen?
Absolutely. But it also, like Anuradha said, it also takes your people's team to accept that, what, genuinely there is a problem. As
Hmm.
of today, we have things like them saying that, look, the attrition rate is because of toxicity. The attrition or the resignations that we see, or to attract great talent, we need to prove that as an organization, we are having these open conversations. And I mean, the service, etc., that we do, we have seen that, and I don't know if there is a Forbes research which came out 2 months back, where they asked that what are the top 3 things that millennials are looking for in the organization when they are joining, and among the top 3 was that they're asking that if the company provides mental health benefits or not.
Hmm. Hmm.
Right? So there is, of course, a change happening. That change is picking up in India. It's slower than what we are seeing outside because, again, of a lot of variety of
Yeah.
circumstances, etc. But yes, of course, there's a upward, positive, gradual change that is happening, but a
Okay.
lot needs to be still done.
Okay. Well said. I'm going to turn this over to Ira. What do you want to leave this audience with? What do you want them to reflect on? What do you want to say to them around mental health? What do you want to leave behind with the audience in terms of continuing reflection on these themes?
How? Okay. Um, I think that you need to take your mental health sincerely and not seriously. When
Hmm.
people take things seriously, then it becomes a big deal, and you
Hmm.
spend a lot of energy on it, and like in a crisis situation, whereas mental health is something you need to work on bit by bit every day. So take it sincerely and not seriously. I think one of the biggest things that people struggle with is the accountability balance. So on a very practical level, I would want you to think of it in the sense that I may have ADHD and I may miss a deadline because I have ADHD. But if I throw my hands up in the air and say, I have ADHD, it's not me taking accountability for my disorder. Versus I say, hey, I'm sorry, I messed up. I will put 3 alarms next time to make sure I don't miss that deadline. And then you give leeway and you all work together as a team, right? So vocabulary is very helpful, but we're also struggling to figure out how to navigate it in this capitalistic world where you may miss your deadline and I want to be empathetic to you, but I have my deadline, and how to find that balance. And for leadership, I would want to say, so many things, but I think it'll be helpful to remember why you wanted to become leaders. Because one is I earn more money, but at somewhere along the line, you would have realized that becoming a leader means that you now have responsibility of other people. And even if you're supremely capitalistic, for better productivity, you want better mental health. So if I can't convince you on an emotional level that mental health is important, then convince you any other way. But your mental health is you having good mental health is the only way you're going to be able to help your employees have good mental health. So those things and more.
Yeah. No, I think all very great points, fantastic points. So thank you. So well said, Ira. I'm going to move this over to Anuradha. Anuradha, what is the message to everyone on this call today?
If you ask me for a message, Sujaya, it would be just one line: when I becomes we, illness becomes wellness. It's as simple as that. But from an organization perspective, I think we have a four-pronged strategy around wellness per
Mm,
se, and I will not say just mental wellness, but which I think everybody must embrace. The first thing is be empathetic. Be empathetic to yourself and your needs, and be empathetic to what others can give you,
mm,
right? Ask wherever required. Secondly, look for enriching experiences,
mm,
right? Create things which enrich your personal and professional life, because that's where you will find fullness, whether it is, as a Gen X, if you've entered the organization for experience, or as a a Gen Y or Gen X, rather, you've come for financial stability. Let the organization give you what you require and enrich your life like that.
mm,
Thirdly, embrace this,
mm,
right? Embrace others who have their unique needs and give them what they want, and ask for those unique needs as well.
yeah.
And lastly, any organization and whoever's working in an organization, please do not complicate wellness as such.
Mm,
It needs to be simple, it needs to be reachable to people,
mm,
and it needs to talk to each person,
mm,
which means we can't have policies around mental wellness. We have to have practices around health and wellness per se, right?
mm,
Whether it's social wellness that we're bringing to people, mental wellness, financial wellness, or
mm,
anything of that sort, it has to be simple, reachable, and it has to be really for the person. Yeah,
mm,
can't be driven by policies.
mm.
So yeah, these four things is what I'd leave everyone with.
Lovely. I think all very useful to reflect on, and very simple in terms of being able to apply. So great stuff. Thank you, Anuradha. I'm going to turn this over to you, Kanika. What message do you want to leave behind with this audience?
One which says keep it simple.
Mm,
I personally love that because I think we've complicated it so much that we get anxious about thinking whether we are anxious or not.
yeah.
So wellness, if kept simple, is great. I think I would just say that accept your genuine self proudly,
Mm,
right? Put your thoughts forward. Be empathetic towards people. The world needs a lot of kindness, and we all can do very well with that.
mm,
And having honest, open conversations, even with your leaders, with your managers at the workplace, goes miles. So I think those are just few things that I want to say.
Okay, but I think they're all very profound. So, everything that you all said so simply is actually very profound. And I'm hoping that the audience is going to take away many nuggets from here to be able to, actually manifest this opportunity for, like Ira said, increased productivity, increased well-being, increased, connect and collaboration in the workplace, and most of all, compassion. So I think with that, thank you everyone for being on this space for more Vodcasts on meaningful themes that matter in the context of your own journeys, both professionally and personally. And I think with that, I'm going to sign this off.